Hi, my name is Deb from DG Reads, and this is my furry sidekick Kylie, and we're here today to go back to school. As we're heading into September, it's still very much summer in California, but it is also back to school season. I always associate September with starting back at school because that's when my school years always started, all the way from kindergarten through college. And that put me in the mindset to want to read some school settings, some dark academia, and so I have a little bit of a TBR for this video put together for you, so let me share. First up, I have Blood Over Brighthaven by M.L. Wang. This is a copy I was gifted by my friend Maria, and Maria might read that. And this one is called A Standalone Dark Academia Brimming with Mystery, Tragedy, and the Damning Echoes of the Past. We're following a main character, Siona, who is studying magic with the goal of becoming an archmage, I believe. And this is not a role given to women willingly. And I know that she's paired with a janitor from another group of people, and this is another group that is not considered capable of magic, just like women aren't. And there's something about how magic has made the city a utopia, but it comes at a cost. And so my guess is we're going to figure out more about what that cost is as she's in the act of studying magic. Next up, I have a book that I received from a Lumacrate, and it is a really pretty haunting type edition. And this is The Whispering Dark by Kelly Andrew. This is following a young woman. She is deaf and she's tired of being seen as just the fragile girl, and she gets an opportunity to attend the school that specializes in students learning to walk between worlds. It sounds like the tagline in it had me very intrigued. It says, Delaney always talked to the dark, but now the dark talks back. So this one seems perfect as a dark academia, definitely school setting, definitely dark. And then I've got Where Sleeping Girls Lie by Farida Abike Amide. And this one is set at a prestigious boarding school, and the main character is starting in her third year there after being homeschooled up till now, and then her roommate goes missing, and I think that she's going to be investigating what's going on behind the scenes. That's my impression. It says secrets haunt these hollowed halls. So this is one where I really enjoyed this author's previous book, which was Ace of Spades, and I've been eager to get to this one even though it's been sitting on my shelf since it came out. So this is the perfect opportunity. And lastly, for this TBR, I have An Academy for Liars by Alexis Henderson, and this is a gifted e-arc from Berkeley and a gifted audiobook from PRH Audio. In this one, we're following Lennon, who is a young woman who seemed to have everything, and then her life begins falling apart. And she gets an opportunity to attend a school that's a school of magic hidden away. She passes the entrance exam and then is taught to really put her skill at persuasion to use. This one is one that, again, I've really enjoyed this author in the past, so I've been eagerly anticipating this one. There are so many more books I could put on here, but I'm trying to keep this TBR reasonable and maybe actually one I will stick to by the end of the video. We'll see. But I am very eager to get into all of these. I'm very eager to get back to school. I was always one of those students who actually looked forward to the start of school. Don't get me wrong, I didn't love school, but something about new books, new subjects, new teachers, new notebooks, new pens always got me in the mood to go back to school. So let's see how it goes on the reading front, and I'll be back once I have some thoughts for you. I am back because I made it halfway into Blood Over Brighthaven by M.L. Wang. And this one caught me by surprise how quickly I got into it and how quickly I flew through the first half, because it's not a teeny tiny book, but I'm having a really good time with it. And I apologize because I'm going to keep lying to you because this is a very, very shiny cover. This is actually the indie copy of this. I do also have the audiobook arc from PRH Audio, so I have switched back and forth a little bit. There are definitely changes between the indie and the traditional pickup version, but it's interesting to see where they have made changes, in fact. And since this is the book that I'm reading for the prompt to read a book that was originally self-published and then later picked up traditionally for Magical Readathon, it's kind of nice to be able to see what those changes were. In this book, we're primarily following Siona, who is a young woman who has trained to be a mage. And the thing with this is she is a woman. So this is not the thing to do. Women aren't meant to be mages, but when it comes time to test to be an archmage, she goes in. Women are only even allowed to test every 10 years because it's so expected that they're going to fail, but she blows everyone away, almost literally, not quite, but she is really fantastic at what she does. She has a great mastery over the skills needed, and she is pushing for this position. But even after she proves herself, she's still treated as other. She's still treated as unwanted. She's not given an official assistant. She's given a janitor who knows nothing really about the magic and about the powers she's trying to harness. So she has to kind of start from the ground up in teaching this man. This man is a janitor. He's part of a people group in this world that is treated like they are nothing. So even worse than she is being treated as a woman, this man is treated like he has no value to society. His people are thought of as illiterate and dumb, and all of these things are coming out as these two get to know each other. We know from the prologue that this man, Thomil, came across with his family, but it did not go smoothly, and he is one of very, very few survivors. So he is standing his ground a little bit with her, which I really like seeing that dynamic between them, and the way that he has a lot of intelligence and a lot of thought and ideas and truths to offer her that she doesn't understand, that she wouldn't have expected someone from his background to understand. So this is going really well, though we're not really in a school setting necessarily. I wouldn't call it traditionally. I do think it's very much a scholarly setting. The dark academia vibes are definitely there for me. So I'm having a fantastic time with this one. I do think I will fly through the second half probably just as quickly as I flew through the first. So I expect to be back pretty soon with some final thoughts. I finished Blood Over Brighthaven and I had a great time with this. I think it was a really interesting read, a little bit different. The ending took me by surprise. I really liked the relationship that developed between Siona and Thomil and the way that they dealt with their prejudices against each other and saw each other for who they were. The way that their different worlds kind of came together. I really liked seeing Siona stand up to the people in power and speaking up for those who are being hurt by their magic system. I think there were a lot of really good discussions in here about what it is to be other, to be outside of the power, whether it be because she's a woman or because he's part of this people group that's looked down upon. I really liked his niece and seeing how feisty she was, even if she at times felt a little over the top with that. I liked seeing how she had been raised in this place from a very young age to be considered a nothing in society. And yet she was raised by an uncle who put power into her and gave her the stories of her family. And she had that kind of female rage going on for what happened to her family. And I really enjoyed that. This is definitely an author that now 2 for 2 in terms of books that I've really, really enjoyed. I think the themes of female empowerment and female rage definitely run through both books, and I can't wait to see what they come out with next. This one wound up being a 4.5 for me, which I'm rounding up to 5 stars on Goodreads, so a really excellent read. All right. For my school journey, I am reading The Whispering Dark, and this one is by Kelly Andrew, and this really, really pretty copy is from Illumicrate. In this one, we are following Delaney. She is a young woman. She is deaf, and she's tired of being kind of perceived as the fragile deaf girl, the synopsis says. And she has not always been deaf. deaf. She, I think, went through an accident and lost her hearing. She wears a cochlear implant, which helps her get through a lot of life, but she's struggling in school. She's struggling in a lot of settings, and sometimes she seems to be hearing things that other people aren't hearing. And she is given the opportunity to attend a prestigious university that specializes in supernatural skills in addition to school. And she takes this opportunity to attend, and she's given a scholarship, and she needs to keep up a grade point average, but she's really struggling with her hearing. She does well in most settings, one-on-one and quiet settings, but big lecture halls where people around her are constantly making noise, she's missing a lot of the lectures, and she's struggling, and she's worried about losing her place in the school. From the very beginning, she has a run-in with one of the upperclassmen, Colton, and he is a TA for one of the classes she's in, and she's trying to make amends with him, and he's just not taking her up on it. And of course there's tension between them. Of course there seems to be a relationship building there. We find out that Colton's been warned off from being around her, and we don't really know the reasons why. So I'm very intrigued to figure out where that is going. I am actually having a really good time with this one. It took me a few chapters to kind of get settled in and figure out what was what, but I love that we're getting to hear from a character who has a disability. We don't get enough of that in books, but also the way that possibly that could be leading to her having additional skills because of her hearing loss. I'm not sure. And I'm enjoying figuring out the world building in here. The school specializes in students seeing between realms. Is that what it said? Or rather, it says it's students slipping between parallel worlds, and that's something that always intrigues me in books. I always think of that more as a sci-fi type of thing, but in here it's certainly being addressed as more of a magical thing, I'm thinking. But I am now 40 some odd % through. I was standing in front of the camera, so I figured it was a good opportunity to provide an update. I really like Delaney. I like how she speaks up. I like how she has this drive to succeed and is working within her abilities and recognizing where there are problems and where she needs help, and the school's not necessarily really making an accommodation for her the way they should. So I'm eager to keep going on this one today. It's one that I have on audio, and I have the physical copy, obviously. So I am hopeful that I will get through this one really quickly and be back soon with some final thoughts. I have now finished The Whispering Dark, and I had a pretty good time with this. I think it did slow down for me in a few places. It lost my attention here and there, but it was fully back, fully engaged by the end of the book. So overall, it's getting a 4-star for me. I think the characters were well developed. I loved the fact that we had a character with hearing loss, as we just don't have enough disability in fiction in general, but definitely fantasy as well. I of course can't talk to the representation and how it was done, but from the author's notes at the end, we know that she herself lost her hearing when she was 4 years old, and that is something that she's been through, and she had the ability to put a character into a story who was like her, who was a character she hadn't seen in stories often for herself. So I really appreciated reading that note and knowing this is coming from an own voice's perspective. This definitely goes in some really dark directions, and I love that about it. I think it takes a little bit of a meandering time sometimes to go through things, and I just felt like in a few places it maybe could have been tightened up just a bit. But all that said, I still really enjoyed it. I loved how it kind of wound up at the end. I liked the back and forth in the relationship with these characters, and I absolutely would read more from this author in the future. So definitely a success, and I'm happy to have picked it up as part of my school settings. I've made it about halfway into An Academy for Liars by Alexis Henderson, and so far it's going well. You are going to probably hear a lot of rattling going on in the background, I'm guessing. It's very windy this evening. Very hot, but also very windy, so can't really stop the blowing around, but I need to do an update so I can continue reading. We're following Lennon, and she's in her early 20s. Her life seemed to be on a good trajectory. She was engaged to be married, but everything goes wrong at her engagement dinner, and suddenly she's out in the world on her own, no clue what to do, when she gets a phone call. And this phone call invites her to come take an admissions test for a university she doesn't know, but it seems like she needs to do this. She's been seeing weird things in the mirror, and she's dealt with mental health issues in the past, and she's not sure what's going on, but this chance to take this test to get into this place is something. It's a goal to work towards, and that helps her out. So she goes. She takes this test, which is really weird. She doesn't understand the test, but she tries to do her best. She's then invited in and asked to do something that seems really strange, but she does her best, and she winds up impressing the powers that be, and she's admitted. And what this place is a university that teaches the art of persuasion. But it's not just learning to be persuasive in your personality, it's actually enforcing your will on other people. As she begins her studies, she learns more about her own power, more about the university she's at, and of course she's not exactly like other girls or other students in this case, I suppose, but she has a lot of power. She needs to learn to harness it. She's got an attraction for her advisor, and he seems to have an interest in her as well, though she's not sure what exactly that interest is, and that's kind of where I'm at this point. I'm really enjoying it. It absolutely is embracing the dark academia vibes. It's, to me, a good mix of kind of fantasy horror. I could see classifying this at this point either direction. I know there's been some debate about whether this belongs in a horror classification because of some potential boxes that might be including this. But to me, I think right now, I've read other horror books in kind of a similar vein of melding fantasy and horror. So for me, it is feeling like a horror read, but I could also see someone absolutely classifying it as fantasy. I think it's a hard line sometimes between those to determine, are these creatures fantasy? Is this magic? Is this a horrific ability? Putting your will onto other people, and the fact that they can use this will to control politics and control people in power and all of those types of things that really are scary to think about. And I think there's some good discussions going on those levels as well. So this is going well so far. I'm eager to continue, and I'll be back with more thoughts. I'm back because I finished An Academy for Liars, and overall, I had a fantastic time with this one. I think it had a few places where my attention drifted a bit, a few slower places, a few places where I felt like maybe it got a little repetitive as it's talking about the way that she can do the things that she can do, and we see it a couple of times, but I really liked the different relationships in here. I like that we get a little bit of romance, but it's not a major plot point, I wouldn't call it. And I think a lot of the book really is about Lennon as a character growing and learning and being strong within herself without it being about external forces and the people around her being the important part of her life. I like the way, though, that she does develop support systems and she makes friends and she develops things that she hasn't had before. And things with her family are rocky. We get to see a little bit of that interaction, and it's not something that has to be perfect by the end of the book either. So overall, I'd say this one's getting a 4.5 from me. I think it really hit the dark academia vibes I was really wanting at this point in time, so it worked out really well for that. So I will leave you here, and I have one more book to get to, and I'll be back once I get going with that one. I went to start filming and had a earthquake. Not a teeny one, not a huge one, obviously, because I'm still standing, but 4.6 in Malibu, which isn't too far away from me, and definitely felt it. So Kylie's being a little extra clingy supervising this particular recording session, so hopefully I can avoid any aftershocks. And that's not why I'm here. I'm here because I am halfway, well, nearly halfway into Where Sleeping Girls Lie, and I'm generally having a good time with this one. I just finished part 1, going into part 2, which is close to, I think, like 43%, something like that. So I figured at the part break was a good time to give an update. So this one, we're following a young woman named Sade, and she's been homeschooled her whole life. Her father, who was her only surviving parent at the time, has passed away. So she's the only one left in the family, and now she's going to this prestigious boarding school. Because of the timing of her father's death, she's arriving a month late, and that's put her behind. And she's paired up with a roommate who's also a third year like herself, and this roommate is put in the place of being her school sister. She's also given a school brother as kind of a buddy program, and she seems to be clicking pretty well with her roommate, and that's fantastic until her roommate goes missing. And then there's an investigation into that, but things seem weird. There's stuff appearing and disappearing from her room. She's becoming friends with her roommate's best friend, and he's very concerned. This isn't something she does normally. The school is looking into it, but then at some point they're not, and she's realizing that this girl is not getting the attention maybe she deserves. I think up to now it's been a lot of setup, and I'm hopeful that in part 2 we'll start getting into it more. I think we're meeting a lot of characters. I think they're being well developed. Like, I'm not worried about not knowing them because of the number of characters we're meeting, but I think there are a lot of moving pieces in here to keep track of, and the school issues and the housing issues and her trying to figure out what is going on. I think I would like to get a little bit more background information on our main character as well. So I'm hopeful. It's not giving me the 5-star feels that I had with Ace of Spades in the beginning. This one feels a little slower, a little more drawn out, but I am still really enjoying it. I'm really enjoying this author's writing and the story. I picked this for Magical Readathon as a book that would make me emotional in the sense of being mad. I'm not quite at that mad stage yet, but I am invested. So I do still have hopes for that as well. So I'll let you know once I finish and bring you my final thoughts. The time has come to wrap up my back to school vlog, but first let's go over my final thoughts on Where Sleeping Girls Lie. And the second half of this did pull me in quite a bit more. It got to that emotional place I was hoping for, where I was mad. It hits a lot of really serious topics, so trigger warnings for rape, for women not being believed, for trauma and mental health and suicide and many other things. So do go into this forewarned about that, but I think it handled the subjects well, in my opinion, and I thought that the tension throughout the book was kept really high, which I like. I like the relationships that form in here, the friendships, the way people rely on each other, and it does end, I think, on a bit more of a positive note than much of the book itself was. So all of that together, this wound up being a strong 4, maybe a 4.5 for me. I think the beginning being slow and harder to get into, it didn't hit a 5-star potential that I had thought it might, but I think it's definitely one to pick up. It's definitely big on the dark academia vibes, so if you're looking for that, but not a magical setting, then I would definitely recommend this one. This wound up being a very successful vlog, I would say. I really enjoyed my time with books. Back to school was always a good time of year for me, so I guess it carries over into my reading as well. I will go ahead and wrap this up here. If you could hit that like button below if you liked this vlog, and subscribe if you're interested in more of my content, more of my reviews. I have more plans coming soon to share with you. Let me know in the comments below, do you have any dark academia type books to recommend to me, or any school setting books in general? Let me know. If you don't have anything like that, let me know what your favorite subject in school was. And if you've made it this far and you don't have anything to comment, you can leave me a school related emoji. But with that, I will go ahead and leave you here and see you real soon in a new video.